Good morning. Hi, how are things today? Good morning. So today is the 22nd of October, 2018. Wow, I had a fantastic night last night. I went ecstatic dancing at the Chumash Auditorium in San Luis Obispo at Cal Poly. And I got to meet up with some awesome dancing friends of mine. And it was just a real pleasure. Believe it or not, it had been a couple weeks since I had been ecstatic dancing. Yeah, maybe 2 weeks. Hopefully it wasn't three. But I was missing it. Glad that I attended this last group. I'm going to definitely try to go more often. This dance was in San Luis Obispo, which is a lot nearer than Cambria. But what's kind of cool is that I got connected with another couple who might help me facilitate, just help support me in my travels to Cambria if I decide to go on a regular basis. So that's nice. So anyway, I had a good time last night dancing. And, I wanted to mention them that if you ever wanted to go dancing, I'd be totally up for it. If that's something that you'd like to explore, the movement of your own body, and how it expresses itself on the dance floor. And if you have an enjoyment of music like I do, boom boom, that might be a fun activity that we can do. So as always, as I begin every session today, let's begin these kinds of sessions. Let's begin Peaceful Reading, the book by Mary Mackenzie. And let's see what she has to say today. I'm gonna. I don't know if you know this. I've got a little pencil pouch that I have in my pocket. I tend to be somewhat organized, so why don't I just give you a little tour of the pencil pouch that I have. So here's my pencil pouch. It has not just pencils, but it's got a pen. This is a zebra pen that I really like, the Zebra G301. Also in the pouch is a dry erase marker. You never know when you're going to need a dry erase marker, right? And I also have a pencil. This is a mechanical pencil. I really love this mechanical pencil. It's a, I don't know what the brand name is. Pentel, I think. It's a 0.7 millimeter lead, which I really enjoy. It's got the extended eraser on the top, and then it's got the clickable lead. And let's see, what else do I also have in here? Dope! Check this out. I've got a fluorescent pen. Yep, fluorescent pen. And not only that, I've also got some Post-it notes. Just because you could have all these writing instruments, but unless you have a pad or notebook to write on, they're less than useful. And of course, I always carry along my my notebook. So I'm always prepared to take notes and leave a note if I want to. And so, anyway, that's me. And my little, I'm somewhat organized. And I'm also making progress on organizing and productivity every day. So one of the things that I'm trying to work on in the realm of productivity is I'm trying to figure out a daily plan before the day happens. So one of the ideas I have in mind is to come up with some kind of a to-do list, I guess, the evening before or the morning before the day starts. And I haven't really got that habit locked in yet. I've done it a couple times. I just I'm not sure. I guess I get distracted, and but to-do lists are a foundational part of my life. It's just I happen to create to-do lists when I need them, and I think that I'll be a lot more effective if I learn how to habitually create a to-do list. So I'm still working on a whole process for doing that. In fact, I'd be curious to learn about your process, Sam, about how you keep yourself organized and how you manage your schedule. I think you use your mom's method of using a teacher's planner, and that is awesome. If you can use a method like that and stick to it and use it every day, that is a fabulous way to manage your time. I've just never really used a teacher's planner. I've when it comes to scheduling my activities and events, I'm tending to use my smartphone now. I'm using Google Calendar, and so far it's working out okay. It's pretty convenient, and the nice thing is that it's on my smartphone, and my smartphone is with me all the time, so that's kind of a benefit. So, all right, let's move to Mary Mackenzie's book right here. Today, again, is October 22nd. And let's see what the quote of the day is. The quote of the day is, "Never go to bed mad. Stay up and fight." Phyllis Diller. Okay, that is a great quote. I don't know if you know who Phyllis Diller is, but she's an old-time comedian. I don't know, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. She's hilarious. And this sounds just like what she would say. And this is actually a great quote because the quote that she's riffing on, the original, is "Never go to bed angry." And and the implication there is that you talk out your problems and get them solved at the end of every day before you go to bed, which is a great rule of thumb, which almost never happens, but it's a great rule of thumb. I think everybody recognizes how great of a rule of thumb it is. But Phyllis Diller definitely has her own take. She says, "Never go to bed mad, stay up and fight." And of course, the idea is not to stay up and fight, but to stay up and do some conflict management. Anyway, that is hilarious. All right, so the subtitle for Mary Mackenzie's passage is "Committing to Full Understanding." Recently, I visited my parents, and I offered to take down their Christmas decorations for them. I offered because they are elderly, and I know how difficult it is for them to do certain tasks. This would meet my need to contribute to their lives. My father responded to the request by saying, in a tone I heard as impatience, "There are 5 big boxes that the decorations go in. Your sister is the only one who knows what goes where." I decided that he would prefer that I leave these things as they were to meet his needs for ease. So I said, "Okay." About 20 minutes later, I realized that I had made an assumption. So I checked it out with him by saying, "Pop, when you told me that there were 5 big boxes that hold the decorations, were you hoping it would discourage me from taking down the decorations?" "No, not at all," he said. "Oh, were you just telling me that you couldn't help me figure out how the decorations are stored?" "Yes, I don't know where anything goes." "So, would you like me to take down the decorations if I figure out how to store them myself?" "Yes, I would." I almost missed an opportunity to contribute to my parents' lives because I misunderstood what my dad was trying to tell me. Part of living in a compassionate communication consciousness is developing a willingness to come to complete understanding before taking the next action. Don't assume anything. Check out your assumptions. Don't miss opportunities to connect with other people by ending the conversation before it's over. Everyone loses when we do this. And the thought for the day is, be aware of times today when you assume what someone means and check it out with them. You know, this is a really important point, and it's a point that I almost always forget. I'm so good, we as human beings are so good at making assumptions about what other people are thinking and saying and doing, and the reasons why. And I would guess that maybe 80% of the time we're accurate. But 20% of the time we're not. We just get it wrong. There are subtleties in thinking and motivation and values that we don't appreciate. These are subtleties that drive other people's behaviors, and it is such a loss. It is sad that we make these assumptions sometimes. I mean, making assumptions and generalizations is great when it comes to the need to think rapidly about a situation, characterize it quickly, and get at least 80% there with your theoretical understanding of what might be happening, what is happening, and what could have happened. But so often it's just not good enough. And, we come away from a conversation that, say, was cut short by assumptions, thinking that we know what's going on. Our brain needs to know. It needs to be right. It needs to be correct. It needs to know what happened. And what does it mean? It needs to know what situations mean. And somehow our desire to know is so urgent that we will gloss over important perspectives, important alternative ideas. And often what happens is it makes us, sometimes we come to conclusions that are rapid, but distorted and false, and often hurtful. There's this hurting that happens. Sometimes human beings have what I'd call like a worst case fear. We think the worst sometimes of a situation. And when we cut off a communication early, or don't pause for enough time to get the full picture and full understanding of a situation, quite often we'll end up assuming things that are untrue. And in the process hurt ourselves with our judgments about what's going on, about what they are experiencing and what we are experiencing. And, it's really tragic. It's tragic because what it represents is a lot of unnecessary pain. And a lot of hurt and judgment and suffering. It's really that. It's suffering. And I mean, now I'm feeling all this compassion for all the people in the world who have incomplete information. And, in that gap, let's say there's a gap where we lack information. What we'll do as human beings is we'll assume the worst, and we'll place it where the gap is of information. This is the worst that we could possibly imagine. This idea is not true. It's often incorrect. It's often a distortion. It's also often a projection. It's sort of our own internal hell. It's sort of the worst meaning that some event could mean. We'll sort of use our imagination to imagine what the worst explanation could possibly be, the one that hurts us the most, the one that doesn't meet our needs to the most. And we'll take this explanation and we'll just jam it into the gap. And then we'll say that. We'll say that is the explanation. That is what it means. And then that meaning will stick. What's even worse is that meaning, that false meaning, that overlay on the situation, the false overlay, sticks. That meaning is like glue now, like. And what's funny too is that even when we examine the meaning, like we examine the meanings in our lives, say with relationships with other people, we can at the same time accept the meaning and also accept that it's a distortion. And we can also accept that this was a meaning that we created. That we basically, it's a meaning that we assumed to be true and really have no evidence of, no direct evidence of. Isn't that amazing? It's almost like a defect in the human brain. It's kind of funny. It's wonderful that somehow our brains have come up with sort of an understanding of the situation. I mean, it's great, and that it happens so quickly. How wonderful. And how we pretend that we know what has happened and what it means. You know, it gives relief. You know, there's a sense of, yes, we know the story. We have an understanding. You know, there's some relief of knowing. Human beings need to know. We need to know. And we need to know fast. And it just feels satisfying to sort of know what went wrong or what happened. But on the other hand, it's a misunderstanding. It's incorrect. It's a distortion. So human beings are constantly just walking around creating these distorted meanings, and suffering is the result. A huge amount of suffering is going on. And you know what I find funny to some extent is that even when we reflect on the meaning and recognize it's untrue, we'll still persist in that untrue meaning. What is that all about? That's why I say the brain is broke. The brain works like this in a lot of ways. It fills in a lot of information. Are you familiar with the blind spot in your field of vision? This is the blind spot that everybody has in each eye. It's sort of in this area. And, if you put your fingers, your thumb, there'll be a point where your thumb just disappears from your field of vision in either eye at about right about here or so. And that's because your optic nerve, that's where the retina bundles into the optic nerve and travels behind the skull into the brain, or behind the skull into the brain. And and so there apparently are basically there's no retina there that is consciously seeing, and so we just have no vision there. And what our brain does is it fills in the gap with, it fills it in with, it may not even fill it in. It just sort of ignores it. There's like a lack of attention in that blind spot. I'm not sure how the brain does it. But the brain has this amazing ability to just wallpaper over a problem. And it's a miracle basically that the brain can adapt in these ways to create a consistent, coherent understanding of reality. But at the same time, it is a distortion itself. The brain is sort of, it's really amazing all the things that the brain does to construct our reality. And it creates these, I don't know, have you ever seen those images of where there's different colors adjacent to one another? And it appears as if the colors are different for one reason or another, but they're the same color. You know, the brain is constantly playing tricks on our understanding of the world. It's in order to bring something together that's coherent. You know, I understand the intent behind the sort of the wallpapering over the world and to try to get it to fit into a coherent whole. But at the same time, these illusions, they're so persistent and convincing, and they happen so automatically that we forget that they're there. And there's a whole illusion of understanding that exists about how we interpret our world. And that illusion is problematic, particularly because it causes so much emotional pain. Anyway, and what I'm talking about is the mistaken belief of understanding what other people are thinking and doing and why they're doing it. You know, it's a tragedy. Though I'll tell you what, it does help us survive and in some cases thrive. And you know, I guess if there's a hole in the story, a gap, you know, if you fill the gap with the worst thing that you can imagine, then it can't get any worse than that. And if you cope with the situation as you understand it, then even at its worst, you'll probably survive. It's a risk reduction technique. I think it's a risk reduction technique that the brain uses. You know, it scans the environment. It has gaps in information. It plugs those information, it plugs those holes of information with the worst that could possibly be there. And then it can guard against the very worst that can happen. But at the same time, then human beings we always have our guard up, right? We're always struggling with a conflict that is imaginary. You know, we don't have any evidence of it. And then I guess it could be good because eventually sometimes we find out that the conflict is imaginary. And we're better off discovering that, aren't we? Yeah. How funny, the human brain. And let me tell you, this is a really automatic function. It happens whether we want it to happen or not. I was just talking yesterday. Yesterday I went to a group of vegan meditation group up in San Luis Obispo. We met at the Gallus Center, and there was we had a discussion about judgment. And when I'm talking about judgment here, I'm talking about the moral judgment. I'm not talking about rational thinking and the judgment which comes from discerning categories and things like that, like a logical judgment. I'm talking about moral judgment here. And, you know, how our brain so readily judges a situation and identifies a solution, usually a correcting solution, that so often is just almost nonsensical. Well, the judgments themselves are nonsensical. Upon close examination, like, I know I might call myself stupid. That's actually something I call myself on occasion. Now, why would I do something like that? When it's certainly not the case. It's definitely not true. That judgment, it's a self-judgment, is inaccurate. You know, there might be aspects of that judgment that are correct. Maybe I'm uninformed. Maybe I have habits that are not optimal. You know, this could be said about anyone and everyone. Though it's said in a way, it's said as an invective. You know, the word stupid has like a are a lot of negative connotations in society, in culture, emotional. There's a lot of emotional connotations with that word. It's also completely inaccurate. It's a completely inaccurate description. It's not. When you closely examine that judgment, what does it even mean? I mean, is there any objective reality to that particular statement, to that judgment? I have examined that word many times, and I found that it is just nonsensical, and that there really is no definition that's clear and concise and understandable and objective about that word. But I use it regularly. Maybe it's a habit that I acquired as a youth. you know, and I'm mentioning it because this happens to everyone all the time. It's so common. I assume that perhaps, Emily, you do that to yourself sometimes. You call yourself names. And everybody recognizes it. It even has a name as an informal fallacy, right? I forget what it's called, an ad hominem. So the ad hominem fallacy is real. People use it all the time. And it is a fallacy. It's an informal fallacy. And, why does our brain continue to use it? Why do we use these labels that are ineffective? Quite often too, and what that label does is it prompts some kind of punishment, right? There's like an emotional punishment that happens. People punish themselves, people might punish others. As if punishment works, right? Punishment usually does not work. It's guidance that works. Education works, not punishment. And so, why our brains are just focused on this need to punish. It might be something we've learned through societal learnings that we've sort of taken in from mass media and culture. And not only that, our religious traditions, wisdom literature is rife with ideas about how punishment is just. and not education. It's funny. This negative feedback, this negative reinforcement, it works somewhat, but positive reinforcement has a lot more effective strategy for getting what you want. Negative reinforcement, not so much. Negative reinforcement creates conflict. It creates discord. It creates argumentation. It creates arguments. And it creates a lot of emotional pain. Whereas positive reinforcement is actually a much better solution. It creates goodwill. It creates incentives. It might even create some form of, but because it utilizes intrinsic motivation. So anyway, what I'm getting to too is this whole idea of judgments, right? They pop up in our minds. They're universal. Everybody has these judgments that pop up in our minds. The judgments are often inaccurate. There's something that what I call it is they don't have any cognitive content. Quite often a judgment, in my view, has no cognitive content, which means that it has no data, it offers nothing new. It also has very little meaning, like any objective meaning. That's what I mean when something has no cognitive content. And judgments, essentially, the whole raft of judgments that I can think of have no cognitive content. They're essentially invectives, right? So, and here's another thing about these judgments too. Quite often these judgments prescribe or these judgments prescribe or suggest solutions to problems that are ineffective. They suggest so-called solutions that don't work to get you what you want. Judgments suggest so-called solutions that not only don't get you what you want, solutions that don't solve the problem, but quite often solutions that are counterproductive, and often solutions that are against your core values. What is the brain doing? Sometimes I wonder what this brain is doing. It happens so automatically. These judgments pop into our mind, they have no cognitive content, and they suggest solutions that are so dysfunctional. They don't get you what you want, and they're often, like I mentioned, self-defeating. And what's kind of interesting is that everybody deals with this problem of judgment, of moral judgment, all the time. Now, I look forward to a future when human beings have surpassed the need to judge and punish. Will that ever be the case? Will people ever get rid of this desire to judge and punish? I think we will. I think it may take a lot of time, though. It may take 50, 100 years. For me, that's a lot of time. Hopefully it doesn't take any longer than 100 years to get beyond that in our culture. I think it'll be possible, though. I think what we'll need to do is that the solution might come from artificial intelligence. I think AI is going to be quite helpful. When it comes to AI, we'll describe the facts, or AI will obtain the facts somehow through video cameras and audio recordings, right? And then it'll be AI which prescribes a solution that is upbuilding, a solution that is, how should I say, non-judgmental. It's also a solution that helps solve the problem. It would be a solution that's consistent with values, and a solution that is not self-defeating. So you know what? Maybe that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to a time where artificial intelligence can assist our moral decision making. Oh yeah, I'm really beginning to like the direction of this thinking now. A lot of people are skeptical about artificial intelligence, but and I am somewhat cautious about it, but I also think of it as this wonderful tool that human beings can use to hone our thinking skills, our critical thinking skills. I'm hopeful that artificial intelligence can help us make better decisions and sort of cover over some of the problems we have with our brain. I've already spoken about two serious problems our brain has when it comes to our thought process that are very common. The first had to do with assuming understanding, right? And the problem of that. And then the second has to do with moral judgment and the solutions it prescribes that don't solve any problems and often make things worse. If there were two problems that I would want artificial intelligence technology to address, it would be this understanding and judgment problem. These two problems of human behavior and human thinking, human consciousness. And if we can get artificial intelligence to sort of make inroads to solving these problems related to incomplete understanding and judgment, wow, that's a point when we basically start utopia, a utopian society. I mean, can you imagine a world without judgment? And can you imagine a world where incomplete understanding doesn't cause emotional pain? Wow. Wow. We're talking science fiction here, folks. That hopefully in time will become science fact, right? Science reality. All right. Anyway, whew, that was quite a digression. Getting into a misunderstanding and judgment. Those are really deep subjects. And I'm glad we were able to go over it. What I'd like to do now is go into some questions. And the idea behind this is for you to get to know me a little bit better, for you to sort of understand who I am and where I'm coming from, and just learn a little bit more about who I am and what I like and what my values are. And I'm using this list of questions here on my Kindle to help us out. So the question is, do you have a favorite song? Did I go through this all? No, I don't think I think I did that. I think, what's your all-time favorite movie? Didn't I say Raiders of the Lost Ark? I think that might be my favorite all-time movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's quite a good movie. But I'll have to give it a little bit of thought. That's the movie title that just comes to mind immediately. Now, here's question number 72. This is interesting. Do you like alcohol? Now, we've talked about addictive substances in the past, and you've got some idea about my perspective related to that. The question, though, strictly is, do you like alcohol? I don't know. That's a hard one to answer. I don't particularly care for it. I think it's a unique flavor that's of interest. I guess it depends in what form it comes. Like, for example, I can enjoy, say, a wine that's a sweet wine. And I can enjoy, I guess, for a moment, a dry wine, I suppose. Or maybe a beer that's sort of maybe a light beer. But that's about the extent of my enjoyment as it comes to alcohol. Now, the question is, there's another way to take that question. Do I like alcohol? No, I actually don't drink it. I don't drink alcoholic beverages. There are other ways to take that question. We've just been talking earlier about understanding and pretending to understand things. Do you like alcohol is actually quite an open-ended question. In chemistry, there are compounds called alcohols that, if I didn't have them in my body wouldn't function. And so I like those alcohols. Anyway, but on the face of it, do I like alcohol? No, I don't really care for it. I don't drink it. And I don't spend any time thinking about it. One of the things since we're on the subject of alcohol, we're here anyway. I think about the effect of alcohol that alcohol has had on society over the years. And, I understand that human beings have this urge for self-development and self-realization and having what I'd call spiritual experiences. And, alcohol is a way to do that. Just like a lot of other kinds of drugs, you can use them as tools for a kind of enlightenment. In my view, I don't really think that kind of enlightenment is worth it. I actually don't think it's worth it. In fact, the experiences that people have, to me, they are what I'd call a sort of like a limited form of enlightenment. It's a kind of enlightenment that they can't necessarily pass on through knowledge or understanding to other people. It's like, it's an experience. It's a felt experience, right? And a felt experience that's unusual and that one can learn from, only goes so far. It only goes so far. And once it's in the past, it's vanished. I like the kind of experiences and understanding that can be relayed to other people in the form of words and expressions and distinctions, philosophical inquiry. That's the kind of enlightenment that I'm interested in. One that persists in time, one that can be recorded, an enlightenment that can be understood, an enlightenment that sort of describes a deep association, a logical association that is supported by evidence, right? This experiential enlightenment that comes with alcohol, in my view, is quite risky, and there's a lot of downside. And even people who sort of experience this kind of enlightenment regularly, it's not entirely clear how the enlightenment translates into greater well-being. In fact, a lot of people that I know of who indulge in alcohol, their lives appear to be less less enjoyable to me. They're less fulfilled, and there quite often seems to be more struggle and uncertainty in them. So I don't see what that enlightenment buys them, right? The enlightenment that relates to drug use or substance use. So, by the way, that fleeting, felt enlightenment that one can get through substance abuse or substance use is only one small part of a spectrum of self-development. And that spectrum of self-development there are an infinite number of alternatives that can provide the kind of enlightenment and self-development that you are seeking, that doesn't have the risk profile that substance use has. Just letting you know about that. All right, so let's move on to the next question. That was, do I like alcohol? All right, so question number 73. What is your favorite drink? That's an interesting question. Well, right now, my favorite drinks are sports drinks. After a workout, I like these drinks that are non-caloric quite often, calorie-free, and they come in these little packets, and you can put them in your liter of water. They also have these squeeze bottles that squeeze a little bit of liquid in them, and it's essentially sugar and artificial colors and flavors. But I really like them. What are some brand names? Crystal Light. Yeah, that's a popular brand name for the drink I'm describing. Also, Gatorade. Yeah. Again, another, those are the kind of drinks that I'm really enjoying lately. Other drinks that I enjoy are herbal tea. And I also have been enjoying this English breakfast tea that's decaffeinated. And it's really good. And then occasionally I'll have some coffee. And particularly decaffeinated coffee. So those are my favorite drinks. And of course, water. If you know me, one of the things you might know about me is that I love water. I always have my 1 liter bottle of water around, and I'm always chugging it. And why, you might ask? Well, it's enjoyable. There's just something enjoyable. I like the feeling of being hydrated. I feel better when I'm hydrated. I feel more alert, and I feel more physically strong. And I don't know. I like water. I think water is my favorite drink. And when I say water, I enjoy a cup of ice water and cool or chilled water. All that's fine. And I might prefer it sometimes. But good old regular room temperature water is fine with me. That is definitely a very fine beverage, and one that I indulge in regularly. All right, so question number 74. What is your favorite non-alcoholic beverage? Okay, here we go. I think I might have misunderstood the question. When it asked, what is my favorite drink, it was asking me what my favorite alcoholic drink was. You know, I don't know what my favorite alcoholic drink is. Maybe it's beer. It's been a long time since I've had one. And it's been like years and years and years since I've even drunk a full bottle. Um, but if I were to say it, I guess it would be that. And it would probably be like a light beer. And not one of your microbrewery type hoppy beers. But like I was talking about earlier, it's not my favorite. My favorites are non-alcoholic drinks. What's great about non-alcoholic drinks is you can drink as much of those as you want. There's no limit. Like you can drink as much lemonade as you possibly can fit in your belly, and everything will be okay. Yeah, yeah. And so there's a lot of refreshment out there. Think of all the refreshment. And, there are other drinks that I really enjoy. For example, grape juice. I am a big fan of grape juice. I really like purple grape juice. And I hope you give this a try. But there is almost no finer variety of grape juice than white grape juice. Let me tell you, white grape juice is something that's out of this world. I'm not sure what gives white grapefruit juice or white grape juice its flavor profile, but it is fascinatingly delicious. I'm serious. I don't quite get it. But white grape juice is just, I'm a fan. It is good flavor. It's no question. It's no mystery why wine is such an interesting drink to a lot of people. I would say that it's interesting just because grape juice is interesting by itself, the non-alcoholic grape juice. Man, white grape juice is so good. It floors me every time I drink it. I'm like, oh man, I'm in heaven. I guess you could say that might be my favorite fruit juice. My favorite fruit juice, I think it's accurate to say, is white grape juice. Yeah. There's some juices that, I wish I enjoyed more. Like, I wish I enjoyed apple juice better. I need to find an apple juice that I really enjoy. There's a lot of mediocre apple juice out there. I'm serious. That actually sounds like an interesting pursuit, like an exploration. I could go on the search for an amazing apple juice. Wow, that actually sounds like a cool idea. Now, I love juices, and apple juice, there's a lot of mediocre apple juice out there. Wouldn't it be interesting if I went on the hunt for an amazing apple juice? I have a sense that there are amazing apple juices out there. I think I've tasted amazing apple juices that just knock your socks off. I'm getting excited about seeking out an apple juice or an apple cider that is amazing. I think I'm tired of run-of-the-mill apple juice. Okay, now I'm starting to get excited. There is so much to enjoy in the world of beverages. Even when you exclude alcoholic beverages and caffeinated beverages, there's still 10,000 other beverages out there. And, other beverages that I really enjoy are carbonated water. I love carbonated spring water. So good, so enjoyable. So I love regular tap water, cold water with ice, cool water too. And I also like sparkling water. I'll have that on special occasions. I'll also have it regularly. I like the LaCroix brand of sparkling water, and I indulge in that. I like how you can get different flavors like lemon lime and lemon and grapefruit and passion fruit and all the various kinds of sparkling waters. And I also really enjoy herbal tea. I took a tour of the Celestial Seasonings factory in Colorado. I think it was was it Colorado Springs? Oh no, I think it might have been another place. Oh yeah, I'm certain of it. It was in a different place. I forget what it is, but some city in Colorado had the Celestial Seasonings factory, and I took a little tour of that. I'm a big fan of herbal tea, and I love the mint, and I love the lemon flavored or the lemon herbal teas and the hibiscus, and that is some good stuff. Other drinks that I enjoy, I mentioned the sports drinks already. No, I'll V8 and tomato juice. I love tomato juice. I have tomato juice almost every day. That's because I love tomatoes. And so, yeah. Here's the thing about tomato juice. I try to get the low sodium variety of tomato juice because, the regular sodium variety is often quite salty and almost too salty. I know what they're trying to do. There are a lot of people who don't care for tomato juice unless it's got that salty spike in it. I get it. I get it. Though for me, it's not necessarily the salty spike. For me, just a regular tomato that's unsalted is very enjoyable for me to eat. I really just enjoy tomatoes. They've got this really deep umami flavor. Quite often they're sweet and they're also sour, right? They've got that vinegar tang, that sour tang to them, that acidic tang. So I really love tomatoes just as they are, and I don't necessarily need salt. I'll get low sodium V8 and I'll just drink it straight. And I never really have the desire to add salt to my low sodium V8. Now, what I will add sometimes is a shot of Tabasco sauce, right? A shot of hot sauce. Now you're talking. Get a little bit of cayenne pepper in there, some red hot chili pepper flakes, from some chili pepper flakes. Now we're talking. That's a drink that you can take to the bank. One thing also is I don't necessarily put ice cubes in my tomato juice. I'm fine with just chilled tomato juice. Room temperature tomato juice is okay, but not ideal. I think I like it. I prefer it chilled. Wow, there's a lot that I have to say about beverages. I have a lot to say about drinks. And, it's because I get so much enjoyment from drinking water and juice and teas. And I also like coffee too. In fact, recently I've been trying to upgrade my coffee game, or thinking about upgrading my coffee game. Right now I just use some kind of crystals. I forget whether it's Taster's Choice decaffeinated or something similar. It might be, I'm not sure. I've been thinking about, I know about what Starbucks can provide and how they've got those coffee packets. I've tried coffee that comes from beans, and here's the thing. At least for the beans that I've tried, they make my stomach really sour. And so I've sort of steered clear of brewed coffee for that reason. I get a sour stomach. It might have to do with the acid content. I'm not sure what. But the roasted coffee beans, I'm sure what I could do is if I looked around, I could find coffee grounds that don't affect my stomach very strongly. I bet you there, but I think I might have to look around a little bit. But what I've found is that the coffee crystals work just fine, and I don't have any stomach problems when I drink crystal caffeine, coffee crystal coffee. Anyway, so let's see what the next question is. So, question number 75. Are you a fan of boy bands? Yeah, I sure am. Boys to Men. That's a boy band. I do like boy bands. In fact, I like man bands too. There are groups of men who sing. I don't know if you've ever heard of Celtic Women. That's a group of women who sing Irish and Celtic songs. They also have a related men's group that sings songs. I like listening to them too. They sing Irish and Celtic songs. The name escapes my mind at the moment of the group. Yeah, so do I like boy bands? Sure, I like boy bands. I like when people sing. I like singing, period. I like when individuals sing, men and women. I like when pairs of people sing duets. And I like when groups of people sing too. I even like singing that is like people who are part of a chorus. Madrigal choruses. I'm totally into that. So anyway, yeah, I definitely like boy bands and girl bands and all that other stuff. Question number 76. Do you have any siblings? Well, yes, I do. I come from a family that had 6 kids. I can't believe it. So I was the eldest. And so I'll just go down the list of my younger brothers and sister by age. And so after I was born, then came my brother Enrico. Enrico Lorenzo Trujillo was his full name, or is his full name. Then my other brother Marcos Andreas Trujillo. And then after Marcos was born, it was Carlo Valentin Trujillo. Carlo unfortunately died when he was 6 years old of acute lymphocytic leukemia. And then along came my sister Barbriana Sofia Trujillo, and then my brother, then my youngest brother. His name is Angelo Trujillo. I'm asking myself, does he have a middle name? I don't remember it, if he has one. Sorry, Angelo, if you're watching the video. He may not have a middle name. Anyway, I know him as Angelo. And I'm going to have to think a little bit more. It might be bugging me throughout the day. So those are my 5 siblings. I have 5 siblings. 4 of them, since one died. But I pretty much still think of myself as having 5 siblings. So that's a lot of kids. I mean, that's just the kids, 6 kids. Then there's my mom and my dad. So my family was 8 people. 8 people. That's a lot of people. I don't know how my parents did it, how they raised the kids that they raised, and they did such a good job of it. I'm impressed. I'm struggling to raise one. So I don't know how you raise 6, for goodness sake. So anyway, Emily, I just want to wrap this up now and let you know that I really appreciate you spending some time with me, getting to learn about the drinks that I like and my family and, I don't know, more about my life. And I'm really happy that we had the chance to discuss understanding and misunderstanding and judgment. I think those are really crucial ideas that have some relevance and bearing in your life, and I'm glad we were able to go over it today. And I'm looking forward to next time when we get together. I just want to say that I love you, and that I love you just the way you are. I value you. You're important to me. How you feel is important to me, and I want you to feel like you are unfolding and developing and maturing into the wonderful vision of a person that I know you can be. And so anyway, I'm happy to be a part of it, happy to play my role, supporting you and helping you grow. So I love you, girl. Peace.